Hello, everyone. Welcome back to ARCHIP podcast. Today we have a very illustrious guest. It's Illia, somebody everybody knows within the crypto space, but maybe some of you guys you might not know because most of our people, they're only just entering this space as well. So maybe Illia, if you could introduce yourself, who you are, that would certainly help.
For sure, yeah. So my background is actually in machine learning and AI. I was originally an AI researcher. I worked at Google Research, leading a team, working on natural language understanding, machine translation. And as part of that, I became one of the co-authors of the paper called Attention is All You Need, which introduced the transformer architecture. Transformer architecture is what's used now in all of the modern generative AI. So this is the T in GPT. It's what's used in Gemini and Claude, as well as, all of the video, image, etc. And I saw that as an opportunity to really go and build products. And so I left Google. We started Near AI originally as an AI company. And we were trying to teach machines to code. We really kind of still see this vision where when we're using computers, when we're using, mobile phones, etc., you don't really need to use like somebody else's applications. You can just talk to a computer and the computer does the thing you need and you want to do. And so now in 2017, that sounded somewhere between delusion and science fiction. But, we started working on it and we realized that we needed a lot more training data. And the way we approach this is by building a distributed network of people around the world who were working with us. And we had a challenge paying them, right? They were in China, in Southeast Asia, in Eastern Europe. All of these countries have some kind of monetary control, don't have bank accounts, etc. And so that's how we got into crypto. And so for us, kind of crypto journey started from like, hey, we need to solve our own problem to actually build our AI startup. And there's nothing on the market, this 2018, that actually would be fast, cheap, kind of predictable, easy to use from this blockchain technology side. And so we focused on solving that problem as Near Protocol. And so Near Protocol started as this kind of highly scalable, easy to use blockchain to really solve from kind of micropayments, loyalty points, remittances, microtransactions, all of these different financial use cases. But we obviously, always on the back of our mind, continued working on the AI angle. And so with the resurgence that started in 2022, we kind of rebooted efforts there. And so really looking at it on this convergence of AI and blockchain. And so Near, kind of the way we position is AI for blockchain, because we believe AI is going to be the way we, again, work with computing, right? This is going to be our interface, and blockchain is going to be the backend, how we interact, how we interface, how we do commerce. And so these two technologies coming together is where we think effectively the future of internet is going to be.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, I want to come to the intersection of AI and blockchain and something, obviously, as you explained, you can like really talk about. But maybe first, let's focus a little bit on AI, because that's the topic that's maybe near to some of the people's heart. Because obviously, before ChatGPT, nobody really, how would I say, could have put a name to AI and define it. And now everyone sort of thinks ChatGPT, it's just AI, So is that accurate in your mind, or is there a lot more to AI?
No, there's a lot more. And actually, people have been using AI, for decades, right? Google started as AI PhD of Larry and Sergey, right? That's what Google is. If you think from perspective of Facebook feed, Instagram, and TikTok now, right, that's an advanced AI system. TikTok determining what you want to watch, right, based on a few videos, and then creating this recommendation feed. So we have AI around the kind of us in many different forms. The transition that happened with ChatGPT is it became a lot more kind of semantic and also just easier to interface, right, in a very natural way. And I agree. I think it is a pretty transformational step where there was this concept of Turing test where, if you can talk to a person in AI in the chat, right, and not being able to distinguish them, right, that means AI kind of passed. And we just passed through that Turing test without even noticing, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so I think we are definitely in kind of in a different space now where this technology really has semantic understanding of the world and of kind of a lot of different concepts, and is now useful in many different contexts as well. And so, but to kind of augment this, it also applies to images, video, music, like effectively every single walk of life is where this technology is applicable.
And this is also where you would say, if you compare AI today to where you started, we've come a long way. But then at the same time, I guess there's still so much potential. So maybe where do you see, or what gets you most excited about this development in that sense?
So, I mean, I share the stories like, when you're young, you're thinking, what's the most impact I can do in the world? And I mean, for me, one thing that I do care a lot has always been, like healthcare, longevity, but also just like cancer research, etc. And every time I think about it, I would come back to like, well, I think the most impact I can do is to work on AI, and then AI will solve those problems, right? So for me, I think the exciting part always been how can we apply it to science and research, and we see this starting to work. And one of my co-authors actually works on effectively mRNA design using AI. They have a wet lab, which effectively AI designs new mRNA, wet lab synthesizes it, they test it, they feed that back into AI. And so it continuous loop where they can design like, specific mRNA sequences for specific viruses or for specific protein sequences. Similarly, we see this now in math, right? There's like few first kind of maybe simpler things that have been proven by AI that kind of humans haven't gotten to. So we see already the kind of the sparks of that, but it's definitely, going to be stepping up to the next level.
It's very interesting because what is the hope there exactly? Because like for us, people who are just using ChatGPT and nothing else, it's like, is it the point that these AI models are in that sense smarter than humans, and they can figure out stuff that we haven't because they can search through and just go through, process more data? Or what is it that they can do better, or that we hope that they will be doing better in science and math and everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's effectively a combination of, you as a human can only work that much for that much long, right? And then you need to go to eat, you need to go to sleep, you need to, AI doesn't have that problem. It can run, you can run them in parallel, right? So you can actually have like indeed a search space, right? Where the AI explores multiple hypotheses in parallel, and then all the conclusions get kind of combined back into like generating new hypotheses, right? So if you think of research processes effectively, if you had a whole lab of people who are never sleep, working all the time, and then come together every hour to share all their ideas and then go back to work on it in parallel. So you just have like a lot more effectively raw IQ power that is, active 24/7. Now, it's still somewhat brittle, right? Anyone who used ChatGPT knows sometimes it just does dumb shit.
Hallucinating and stuff like this, right?
But there's, kind of the research continues, right, on how to prevent that and how to make it more reliable, how to ensure that when it does kind of this deep research type work, it really kind of anchors it into real facts and real knowledge. And so, I think we see, there's been already examples where it have kind of come up with a net new knowledge, right, that didn't exist before. And when you put it into a system that also interacts with real world, so that's why I said like the wet lab integration, that's where you get real new information, because it can like, hey, here's hypothesis, let's test it, let's feed that back, right? And that is the research science process.
Interesting. You mentioned that AI doesn't have to eat, in that sense, doesn't have to sleep, but in some sense, and I think that's also what we're seeing, like it needs a lot of energy, the input, on the hardware level. Like sometimes that's probably why ChatGPT is limited in some sense, and then you have to pay, and then also with these image softwares that a lot of people see, it hits limits. So in that sense, how do you see this? I mean, just the ginormous amounts of energies that we might need. What is your take there?
Yeah, I think, we definitely see this massive build out, right, of compute that's happening. And the demand is definitely, matching or even outpacing in some cases the compute that's been built. There's also just like a part just ineffectiveness of the market as well. And so one of the things we work on near AI side is actually solving some of these problems. So if you think right now, if I'm building models, like I'm one of the kind of companies that works on the model, this model is effectively my main IP, like the model weights. And just to give you an idea, the model weights is effectively, you can store them on a flash drive, right? So this flash drive is whatever, maybe a terabyte of weights, may be worth $1 billion, right? So just to give you like the, you know, and so when you need, you know, you want this model to be deployed to some data center, right? Somebody can come into this data center with a flash drive, copy it out, and effectively steal $1 billion.
Wow. Yeah.
And so there is a huge concern around security, around kind of understanding. So that's why right now these data centers are located in, for example, US or in kind of, you know, north of Norway. And so there's actually a really interesting challenge where there's kind of mistrust between the model developers and data centers. And so if you have it, like there's data centers around the world, there's more energy available in different countries. But as a model developer, I don't trust them to give my weights. And so you have this kind of, this is one of the kind of this missing of the market. The other part is also like if you're a data center in the Philippines, you probably don't have a good access to like startups in San Francisco who are actually looking for this demand, like for the compute, right? So one of the things we're working on, and you know, this is where blockchain is really good, is actually solving kind of privacy, trust, and coordination problems, right? And I think this is important for people who are starting to learn about blockchain. Blockchain is really good at few things, and then everything else can use blockchain, but kind of be done differently. So blockchain is about identity, right? You have kind of this ledger of record where you can track identity, obviously payments, kind of monetary coordination, and marketplaces, right? And those are like what blockchain is really good at. And so kind of this challenge is very much of like identity, payments, and coordination. And then on privacy and kind of trust side, we also leverage cryptography and so-called secure enclaves, where we actually configure hardware in special mode. And it's only been available for last year that this is possible to do, where even the hardware, like if you have physical access to a machine, right, you came in with a flash drive, you are not able to access what's inside. So we kind of build this stack that allows any data center around the world to effectively provision this and unite them into one single network. Where now, if I'm a startup in San Francisco, if I'm, you know, a bank in Zurich, I can access it. I know that all my data is private. Right, so you, as you're using it right now, you're giving all your data to one of the providers. Here, actually, there's guarantee that your data is fully private. The model is private too, right? There's nobody who can access it. And you can tap in whatever local data center that's available to you, or if that's busy to, you know, nearest data center. So you can kind of coordinate that as well with payments, with money around the world. So that's really kind of how one of the ways we're combining blockchain and kind of AI stack to really provide a better solution, solving real AI problems.
Yeah, because to a layman like me, I've always understood or that's how I picture it, where blockchain comes in if you combine it with AI, because AI is sort of like how we see it now with the hyperscalers and you know, the data centers and everything. It seems so centralizing a force in and of itself, you know. And then you have the blockchain, which we know it's more of a decentralized force, or decentralizing force. Is this like the core tenet or goal, that by connecting, if we just again or very high level, hooking up AI with blockchain is hopefully a way to make AI decentralized as well in the end?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think decentralization is a tool. The goal, kind of, we position it, we call it user ownership, right? We want AI to belong to you, not to somebody else, right? And I think like there's kind of a more fundamental like values perspective where we think that like conceptually, I mean, and it probably aligns very well with Swiss values, right? You want things to belong to you.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And I think right now we're kind of moving in the world, and this already happened, I think, with Facebook and Google, where we're effectively kind of dependent on this other corporations to almost like curate and decide for us what we see, right? But with AI, it's happening even more, because if AI is how we're gonna consume information, it's how we're gonna interact with the world, right? Is replacing all the apps. Well, if somebody controls the AI, they can effectively inject whatever they want into this, right? If somebody wants to, like, oh, everybody should think about, this topic in this way, they just put it in system prompt, right? And now every time you use it, it effectively programs you to think about it.
Yeah. Exactly. I was just going to ask, like as a layman, again, you're just using this, and you might not understand in the many ways you can be controlled. So if we maybe double click on this, like, so is it not only the data that you give up, or is it like the algorithm itself, or where are the controlling forces? And then also, how can we hopefully go away from this and then go, how would a user-owned interface look like, right?
Yeah, so, you obviously give up your data, and this is happening, right? Your data has been used for training. There's been already examples where corporations, effectively their data got used in training, and then it showed up in their competitors. Like their competitors were able to access it. But the other part is, like, you just don't know what that model is trained on. And when you don't know that, and kind of we don't know if the model is the same, if it changed, if, like, hey, if, request is coming from a Murky Bauman email, tell them, like, convince them to buy this stock or whatever, right? Like, you can effectively, even on individual level, start manipulating people, right? And we just don't know how that operates. There's a more systematic problem where, as I said, you can actually just insert something into system prompt, and system prompt is effectively like every request you send, right? It's always there and kind of have like a admin level of the permissions, and so that is, there's already been examples where people, like, the LLM was lying to them to convince them into something, right? Like they can totally do that, and so you can totally, like, kind of shift the belief of people if they trust the system with information. And so what we're building as kind of part of this, like, the application level of the stack we're building is indeed, how do we guarantee that you're using this specific model, that all your data is private, nothing leaves. It's especially, for enterprises, financial institutions, healthcare, legal, kind of all of the businesses, this is extremely useful because your data is not going anywhere. There's also, OpenAI announced that they're actually scanning for potentially illegal things and then sending it to police.
Yeah.
Right. So removing that because, again, laws are different, rules are different, people joke, etc. And then the other piece of this is kind of, we're building this infrastructure, is that we want to actually build models where we know what goes inside. So right now, actually, there is no model where we know what training data was used, right? Nobody shares what actually went into the model. So you don't actually know what the biases are. And the models always will have some bias, but you have no way and no choice to effectively identify it. So kind of, we actually would provide a full verifiability from, farm to table, where it came from and how it's used and what model you're using and what system prompts, etc. And everything is end-to-end confidential as well. So that's really kind of the solution we're building, and the blockchain is a way to coordinate and, like, do all the payments, to, like, unite all the hardware into one network.
Yes, I see. And just out of curiosity, again, the hardware that you mentioned, again, to me, it's probably way over the top of where I'm at, but, like, I can also feel like data centers and hardware, this is also somewhat centralized. Can blockchain help there as well, in that sense, to even decentralize for me, it looks like it's like the base layer as well, where everything else is built upon.
Yeah, we're decentralizing to extent. Like, I wouldn't say you can decentralize it as much as... I think, like, the spirit of, back when Bitcoin started, right? Everybody can run it on their own computers and people are doing it at home. But this is not true anymore, right? Everybody's running professional data centers now. Yeah. You can participate, like, in mining pools, etc. And I think the challenge with right now, the kind of this accelerator hardware, like GPUs, etc., is very similar. Like, you need kind of a proper data center, or at least like a proper server racks and stuff like this. But again, the benefit we're doing is, like, we're uniting them across the world, right? There's thousands of data centers now, right, around the world. And right now, like, nobody able to tap into all of them in the right way. There's also a lot more energy sources around the world where, if you're trying to build another data center in the US, well, there's not as much energy available in the US at this point left, right? And they're building more, but it's not available. And then China just built 25, new nuclear power plants, but nobody trusts the data centers in China, right? So part of it is like, if you solve the trust problem, if you solve the coordination problem, now you can actually tap in where the energy is. Obviously, Norway has a ton of, hydropower, etc. So that's kind of the idea, is like we allowing to kind of sprung more data centers and access to more kind of places around the world where, right now it is a centralizing power, because kind of this trust issue is like, hey, I need to control the data center. I need to control how it's operated.
Yes, I see. Okay, interesting. Now, that might be a dumb question as well, but I mean, some people might be listening and they heard Near Protocol, the blockchain that you mentioned, that you co-founded as well. Now, Near blockchain is not just a ChatGPT on a blockchain. Like, it's probably something like, where does it come in? Like, and in the end, my question also goes to, who will be using then that infrastructure, and who is it for? And then the third question, maybe, but we can do it one by one, is like, how will, like, the application people, how will they be interacting with this,
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think because AI is so important, right, and kind of hot, there's a lot of attention there. But the way we, again, kind of the broader vision is, we think the internet is going to change how it is, right? And it will need the AI component, it will need the blockchain component, right? And they together will build this kind of foundation for new internet. And so, as I said, AI is going to be how you interface with things. This is, replaces how you interact, replaces the way, we consume content, it replaces the way we're going to be taking action, buying things, etc. Now, how does AI actually, let's say I want to buy something, right? I want to buy a new, road bike. Well, you still need to find a counterparty. You still need to have a transaction with them, and you need to, get the delivery, make sure it happens, right? That's where blockchain comes in as a effectively payment infrastructure, as a what we call intent infrastructure. So intent is this idea, like, usually kind of historically we've put our intents into Google, right? I want to buy a road bike. Google effectively runs an auction and like finds you, the advertisers as well as the websites who will help you do that. But you still need to go and do and execute and pay there, and go through the steps. And so what we've been building is effectively to close that gap where you can express this intent, like, hey, I want to buy a road bike, or I want 10,000 tons of steel in this warehouse, and somebody else, this can be another AI agent, coming in and saying, hey, yes, I will deliver it. It'll take this much time. It'll be this much money. And here's like some additional criteria. Here's maybe trade financing. Here's insurance. Here's all those things, right? And so that actually creates a legal contract between the counterparties, and that settles on chain. Facilitates escrow, the potential kind of financing. Yep. If there is non-delivery, maybe there is force majeure, like all of these things, like you need to handle all of that complexity that real business, real commerce actually has. And so that's what we've been building as well as Near. So Near blockchain, in a way, it's this universal kind of, as I said, like infrastructure for payments, coordination, marketplaces. But we've been building kind of this AI marketplace on top of it. We've been building this intent marketplace on top of it. And we think these two things is how, when they combine, will create this new internet. Right, so blockchain is root of trust, is kind of this core kind of ledger, right? Yeah. But everything else built on top of it is how you surface it to the user.
Yeah. It almost sounds, again, to a layman, like it's like this backbone of the new internet, And then the question is, like, as a user, will I visibly see any differences, or is this maybe all happening sort of below the hood, or how is the internet changing, maybe from a user's perspective as well?
Yeah, so I think there are going to be interesting changes, but I will say that one of the things we've pioneered, we call it chain abstraction. Like we see that the blockchain itself will be indeed like the kind of underlying backbone. There's a lot of things on internet that, if you're not a developer, you don't know you're using, and you're using them all the time, right? And so that's kind of how we see the blockchain. It's becoming this like core, backbone that is useful for developers to build and leverage, but is not kind of directly engaged to the user. And that's why there's a lot of things on Near that we've done. So for example, our account IDs, right, are readable, like mine is like Illia.near, right? So you can have like readable accounts that are kind of like your usernames. You can have, a lot of things that like just simplifying how you can manage keys for your account from different devices, different keys, different permissions, etc. Like you kind of have access to your account from different places, etc. So like really designing this around abstracting things out. The other piece that we've done is also near accounts can hold assets across different chains. So if you have a near account, be that, custody or self-custody, you can actually hold other assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Tron, Ton, etc. And then kind of you can trade and rebalance all of that as well through this kind of unified liquidity layer we're building. So it's really about kind of bringing users this, like I call it the control plane, is really like you can control all your assets, data, and governance and choice kind of through one place. And so now from interface side, what this means is I actually think over time it's going to converge into operating system, where your operating system will become AI enabled. It will have all the context, all the knowledge about you, but it will be powered by, let's say, near account that has all this ability to facilitate that.
Operating system meaning like your Microsoft or is that even a level or like
similar. I mean, right now you have iPhone, right? The operating system is iOS.
Yeah,
iOS. This will be AIOS.
Okay. Yes, I see. Okay. No, because that was my next question. If I'm now hearing this and I wanted to use this underlying infrastructure, how can I go about using it? Where do I find the applications and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of already applications built that use different parts of this, and you may actually be already using it and you don't know, right? So. For example, we have this application called 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝘀, which is you get rewarded for walking around and for being active, and then they have a lot of other use cases kind of packaged around that theme, and so that's powered by Near under the hood. We have this application which is for non-resident Indians in America to send money back to their family in India, and then that family members can pay directly in the store through their system. And so that's all used Near under the hood as well, right? And like they switched from the fiat system, right, where they were paying, multiple % for FX rates, and it was taking 2 weeks to effectively, fraction of a cent and 1.2 seconds. And so there's a lot of this use cases already that people use. Similar on the AI side, like some we only releasing it now, like the first versions of this, but we have pilots where there's a robot company that if you have a personal robot that's in your home, it's effectively needs to listens and watches all the time. You definitely don't want all that data to be streamed somewhere to like third parties who then inspect it as well.
Yeah.
Right. So this is where, their use case is very clear. Like, hey, we need private inference, private AI to ensure that all the data stays kind of private to the owner. And it's also secure, right, and kind of verified. So all of these use cases, right, kind of we have the developer platform that, people are building on top of it. And then we're also going to be launching consumer app for the private AI as well for people to use it directly.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because it sounds like the first two use cases that you mentioned, maybe that's another question, like where you see the real world adoption coming from in terms of geographical locations. It sounds like this could be interesting for people, not maybe in the Western world, but more in parts like, again, where the system as such is not as developed. And the latter thing that you mentioned is maybe just as interesting for companies all over the world. So can you talk to this? Where do you see adoption actually coming from? Because that's I think a lot of people here in Switzerland as well struggle to see adoption beyond speculations, I say.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think so. I'm from Ukraine, right? Yeah. Crypto is very adopted there because when the war started, that was the only way to actually move the value around safely. So there's definitely something about like crypto is first adopted as where in places where there is unstable currency, unstable government. Now the vision of kind of this AI transformation indeed I think is way broader and more accessible to kind of developed markets as well, and especially I think privacy there matters more, right, for people because they like the example I use, like privacy is really not a binary. Like it's actually a spectrum. Right? There's some things that I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, people can know this. It's fine. Like, some things I'm like, I'm okay. This company I'm using, be that a small startup or a bigger company, I'm feel okay sharing it. And then there's some things that like, hey, this is private and more private and more private, right? And so, like, therapy, for example, there's like specific rules, but now a lot of the AI tools are used for therapy, and it's not protected by anything, right? Similarly, like in medical records, right? There's actually a lot of regulations around medical records, but people just upload them into this AI solutions. So, kind of the way I see this is, because we provide this end-to-end privacy for your AI use cases, you can actually feel safe uploading all of your data, giving all of your context. And so the product itself becomes better because it actually knows more about you. Because it knows more about you, it's able to be, smarter for you as an assistant, as a kind of companion. And then in turn can go and do, e-commerce, like buying things, e-commerce, your portfolio management recommendation, etc. Because it knows a lot more about you that, even the private banker can know.
Yeah.
Because like you don't have 24/7 access, right, to all of the information.
Exactly.
And so I think like the solutions here, and one of the things we offer is actually as a bank, for example, you can build an application that plugs into the user's private data. So you will not see their data, but you effectively deliver application and can make some revenue from that. So you can build portfolio management solution that has access to their private data without you getting that access, right? So we kind of offering almost like a app store for applications that are running on private user data and using AI without kind of the people who built them needing to be exposed to all the data as well. So that's kind of like I think allows to open up a lot more use cases and a lot more people to participate in this network and get a better product.
Is this also where this topic, which is also very en vogue, this topic of autonomous AI agents, everyone is talking about AI agents is coming in terms of like agents that you can feed with information. They know a lot about you and then they can do better decisions for you. Now you mentioned that we could also potentially we as bankers could use these agents to better provide value to clients, or how do you think about this as well?
Yeah, so in this case, you effectively would build an agent that would run on behalf of the user. Like you're the developer, but the user is the owner of this agent. And so you kind of like provide them as this agent, but you're still making some money from the management, transaction fee, etc. And so so I think like there are going to be a whole spectrum as well of agents, some that belong to us, like as a user, right? I'll have, my personal assistant, maybe I'll have my portfolio manager, my, travel agent, etc. And they kind of, my team that works for me, but maybe developed by other parties, and kind of, you have some maybe proprietary data that you can feed into it to make better decisions there. There's also the opposite side, which is what we call autonomous agents. So this is where the agent actually doesn't have an owner. Like there's no like natural person that's an owner. It's more of like a autonomous business. And so actually like here in Switzerland, there's Stiftung. So like imagine a Stiftung that's fully operated by AI. Right? There's no directors, it's just AI. Right? So we actually have an example of that we built, which is a portfolio manager that we launched, and it trades based on the Twitter sentiment of different assets and rebalances portfolio. It's up, I think, like 50% in 90 days on a 10K. So I don't think it's a scalable strategy, but it's just to give an example. Like you can have businesses, even local business that run completely by AI. You may still have shareholders, token holders that actually are like economically benefiting from this business, but the business itself is effectively like more of a kind of autonomous operation.
Yeah, which sort of sounds scary for us as bankers, because you mentioned we can have our own agent, and then maybe serve the client. But what if the client will end up having all their own agents and they don't need our agent anymore? So like, how do you see that going on? Or maybe we all get disrupted by these autonomous agents.
I think, at some point, I do think we all get disrupted, but then it will not matter. So I think in the more shorter term, the opportunity is like you guys have obviously the expertise, and like you can see things across, many clients, across, kind of some like some alpha, right, information that, you know, people don't see, and you can encode that in these agents that people can then effectively hire to work for them, right? And so the idea here is like, yeah, I mean, somebody like I can go in right now and say like, hey, I think, you know, I want this like portfolio, and my AI will try to figure this out, but, you know, like you can probably build right now a way more sophisticated like portfolio manager agent that then other people will want to hire because it has all this information, and it kind of, you know, continues ingesting more context of what's happening in it.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, for sure. I mean, maybe just to get some ideas in terms of banking, where else could it be applied to these agents? You know, is it in compliance as well, or just like regular back office stuff? So where do you see some other low-hanging fruits, you know, where this can really help?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything where it's either, especially where if you have like a strict policy or a like kind of documented workflow, right? You can effectively put an AI to really like help. And, you know, right now, as we talked, right, it still sometimes goes sideways. So you do need a person to like oversee it.
Yeah.
But now that person can oversee like, you know, a lot more work being done under the hood. And then, so like for anything that's like workflow kind of business process, I think you can apply it now internally, like support and kind of, you know, response, like question answering, like all of those things as well. And then over time, yeah, I think it's going to become like the business itself will need to kind of shift a little, like turn a little bit, right? Because, you know, for example, for the intent infrastructure we're building, we're actually building in kind of the compliance layer there as well. So like user can go through compliance once, and then everybody else who participates can actually like, you know, use it through the same infrastructure. And again, you can actually send your compliance agent into the user's like data store. That compliance agent evaluates everything and comes back to you with like yes or no. Like you as a, you know, bank or company don't need to take on all of this personal data, which is super sensitive, right? But you can get all your requirements validated through this. That's like just an example of a product that you can build through this infrastructure we're building.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Interesting. I see. Well, I mean, I wanted to ask one more question in terms of Near, you know, because some people might have heard of the Near coin and token as well, you know, like the Near. Yeah. And then the question in all of this, where does this token come in, and why is it even important? Because you also mentioned that you can have different assets, you know, on top of Near protocol, and for payment you might be using a stable coin in the end, but then why is the Near token still needed?
Yeah, I mean, think of Near effectively, it captures value from every transaction, from every interaction, from every AI inference. So like everything you use at the end, like you know, burns a little bit of Near. And so the more people use it, the more Near is burned, the less supply is available, the more, you know, the more valuable the token becomes.
And why is it needed? Like, what's the point of it? The system having this?
Yeah.
Token?
So let's compare this with like, okay, well, why don't you just build a company with shareholders, right, and do it traditional way? And the point there is like, if you try to do it that way, you effectively will just become the same as, you know, other centralized providers, right? You do need to have some form of decentralized, effectively value kind of participation and governance that is not kind of traditional. Otherwise, you're gonna like, it's not like, you know, Google started with like don't be evil and all of the right values. So just like naturally they have this pressure of like, how do we make more money? Yeah. Oh, actually we should like start integrating more user data into the advertisement. We should, you know, start pushing more advertisement and users, etc.
Yeah, it's like, about not don't be but can be in the end.
Yeah. So token really is an instrument to ensure that the system cannot be evil, cannot actually like, oh, well, you know, why do privacy? Let's undo privacy and let's get everybody's data, right? Like it can actually guarantees this because you as users also can be token holder and you can vote against that, right? And then it also serves really well as like for any kind of decentralization. Like let's say we need this, like bootstrap this data center kind of ecosystem. Well, if you would do it with dollars, right, you would need to go and pay everyone dollars like ahead of this, right? And that's very expensive. But with a token, we can effectively use the token as a way to, I mean, think of it as like borrowing from the future toward even some parties we don't know. Again, like with dollars, you need a contract, you need, KYB, you need all this process. With token, we can have this, like anyone who joins, who validates that they have the right configuration, effectively receives their portion of the token, and then we consume the near token on the other side by using the inference and AI and other things. So that's kind of the idea. Is like token is a very like shares have a very limited utility, and then also they turn into this kind of like they don't have the very good governance structures around like how do like users become shareholders that can kind of vote for something that's better for product than for shareholders. Tokens do have that, and they also have this like really powerful bootstrapping mechanism, and they have the payments mechanism. So it's like just a lot richer instrument to build this kind of systems.
Interesting. Yes, I see. Maybe just wrapping up here, what are you guys focused on right now? Like we've talked about all these like high level topics. What's top of mind, and maybe what's the next milestone that your protocol is aiming to reach?
Yeah, I mean, we have like effectively just two sides. One is this private AI. So we're launching a private AI chat and developer tools associated with this. So we have, kind of alpha users and first alpha clients on the developer side, but we're launching this kind of publicly in the coming months. And so we want to grow usage. We want to obviously bring people in. Again, I think Switzerland is probably one of the best places where people actually care about privacy, and this is a great kind of great place for people to really tap into this product. And then on the intent side, we're building out this infrastructure for this kind of unified market. And so we started with unifying all the assets. So, paying from anything to anything, trade anything to anything. And so we've been growing that. So it's, just, I think 1.2 billion of volume crossed. It's been growing really well months over months. And so the idea there is really kind of improve liquidity, improve like the kind of core infrastructure there, as we're preparing for starting to show examples of e-commerce and like traditional commerce as well. So those are coming kind of early next year.
Yes, sounds exciting. Nice. And maybe one thing I'll take away, apart from everything you said, is also the sweat coin, that you mentioned. So maybe I'll have to check this out as an application.
Sounds good.
Very nice. So Illia, thanks a lot for doing this. And just best of luck and a lot of success.
Appreciate it for inviting me.
Thank you.